CRN, Chuck Wilder here. Let me tell you about my guest, Kimberly Dvorak, award-winning national security and border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and print media. And Kimberly is also the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She's streaming live at Facebook. That's Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K. She is also a TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. And her website is thekdreport.com. Kimberly, how are you?
Well, another week, another recount. What could be better?
Nothing going on, huh?
Nothing at all.
She had a wonderful another American election. Aren't elections great in America when it's so? Oh, wait a minute. It seemed a little different this year.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be like the 2-month-long counting version.
Boy, I'll tell you.
The long story.
Before we get into the primary thing you want to talk about, and that is Sidney Powell fighting back, I understand that you actually went to a Trump rally, I guess. He's still having them, but it's sort of an American rally. Is that what it was?
It's kind of what I can kind of point to is the Tea Party movement. So now what they're having across the country are Stop the Steal movements. And, I remember I went to my very first Tea Party movement way back in 2009. And they started out small and then they kept growing and they became, a lot bigger events. It led to a lot of really cataclysmic changes within the government. And of course, then in 2010, the, Republicans, did a huge red wave instead of a blue wave. And we saw some change on some of the issues that the President Obama at the time was, trying to force upon the American people, not using Congress, by the way. So, I just thought I'd go get a feel to see if this is kind of like the same energy. And these people are passionate. These people have their Trump flags. These people, what I saw like people making the homemade signs, not here's the signs printed out by campaigns or whatnot, but they went back to, making their own signs. So I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more of a movement on that front. Especially if the president does not, win re-election. But they are still very, they're still very confident they're going to do this. And the White House, they really have kind of put back out there that they really think this is going to, end up at the state level. And of course, at state level, people are like, oh, okay, great. Well, then they're just going to have to certify and then it's not going to work out for the Republicans. Better luck next time. Well, what's most likely going to happen is if this goes to the Supreme Court. So the end of last week, everybody was all up in mainstream media was just gloriously happy that this Trump-appointed judge, said, nope, we're not going to hear your standing. But what they didn't understand, that made we're going to get to SCOTUS a lot quicker than we would have had. This judge would have asked for changes and remanded back down to the lower court. So it's going to SCOTUS a lot quicker than anticipated on that front. So it wasn't a loss. I mean, it was actually kind of helping the administration go through this process.
Sounds like a loss.
Yeah.
Sounds like a loss, but not a loss. It's sort of like a guy will tell you, my sister's good looking,
Mine is.
Go ahead and date her. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's kind of you don't know until they do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there.
Yeah. So presumably, so both sides are going to hear. SCOTUS will hear from both sides. SCOTUS is not going to make the decision. They're not going to say when they come back with their ruling, Donald Trump's the president, Joe Biden's the president. What they're going to do is they're going to kick it back down to that state level, i.e., this is what the Trump administration has wanted all along. And then there's one of two things that can happen once it gets back to that state elector system. So you have, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona. They all have statewide offices and that are held by the Republicans. So then it becomes that one state one vote scenario. And of course, there are more Republican states out there than there are blue states. So that becomes an easy victory for the president on that front. That kind of, sets aside all of these other cases. But, that's also going to, put forth, a lot of people are going to be a little, perturbed that this is how the Supreme Court has ruled on this matter, and most Americans aren't used to, getting into the weeds of all of this. I mean, because this is what they're doing is constitutional. Yeah.
Why didn't they do that with Bush and Kerry?
Well, Bush and Gore?
Gore, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, because it was one state in dispute. It was one state. Now you've got multiple states. So even if it just came down to Pennsylvania, the president still couldn't win. So, the goal for the GOP is to take Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. That gives them 280, and that drops Biden back to under 270. So that's what they're looking. Those are the three states that matter. They think they're going to get 5, maybe, maybe not. As we know today,
you said Georgia, Pennsylvania, and what was the third?
Oh, Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
So
those are the only three they need.
Right?
Yeah. So that's all they need to win. So last week in Pennsylvania, we saw the state legislature have hearings. People could come and testify, and mathematicians and statistical people and all kinds of people came and testified. And, so they're curious, they're listening and learning a little bit more about the election cycle, what the machines can do, what they can't do, and all of that. And then, today we're seeing what's going on in Arizona. They're holding a very similar meeting and hearing in Arizona, all under the penalty of perjury, of course, and statements that because I've been watching some of this. So I think that the president has said his team, this is one part of this team that I thought was a smart move today. Last week you asked me about, I don't know about that. Today I do, because they're using words like be brave, you'll be a part of history, promise an actual real vote. If you don't do this right, that will be the end of the GOP. So they're using little key terms to kind of give the electors, so if it goes back and the electors are going to decide who they give the state to over the one vote, one state, one vote thing, and it goes back and they do the recounts and all of that. This is what they're doing. They're telling the people sitting on those boards, look, we know we're right. We'll have your back. Be brave. Make the right decision. So that's what I saw this morning so far in the hearings, and it's an interesting tactic. And I just think that the Trump administration, again, he's kind of what he did at the end of the Hillary Clinton election cycle. Is he outworked her. He just flat out outworked her. So with the White House, it looks like they've got 3 prongs that they're working with. They're working with 3. They'll be happy if any one of the 3, pulls through for them, because that means in the end that he'll be reelected.
Wow. Yeah. So overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're a Republican, where are you at right now? An 8 or a 9? 9 plus?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of rhino Republicans that aren't necessarily helping the president out. You know what? You never want to go to court. I mean, I've been told that that you never want to go to court because you don't know if you're going to win, lose, or draw, and all of this. And all 2 of these scenarios come directly from the court. The second scenario where the administration's trying to plead to the state electors that they can make the decision to give their state votes to whichever candidate they deem won the election due to the chaos that all of this different fraud has put itself out there. So I would say that if you're thinking that you want to win and it's going to be the easiest way and you don't want to go to court, then I'd say that that's what I would go with. And I would say if you do something like that, then your odds are probably going to be 80 to 90% that you win, because those sit in Republican hands. Going to SCOTUS, again, SCOTUS is not going to make the decision. They're going to tell the states that either A, if you changed your mail-in ballot parameters and you didn't do it through the legislature, then all of those ballots need to be thrown out. They're not going to say, that's the Biden one or the Trump one. They're going to come up with a list of guidelines through the judicial system, and they may not say that. They may say that the pandemic creates an overwhelming, something of biblical proportions, if you will. I'm sorry, unfortunately, this was an anomaly. Maybe next time you guys write in there in case of a pandemic in there and parents, so we don't have to go through this again. But so I think that presents, odds with that. And then Sidney Powell, of course, which I call option number 3. I think she's got the strongest case of all of them. But what she's got takes time. But her case takes time.
Yeah. Will the Supreme Court, all right, will they mention the word Dominican?
Yeah, they will. I mean, they'll say that there are some definite anomalies that need to be addressed. They might come back with a decision saying, okay, well, you're now going to have to provide all of the analytical data to all of those machines, to all the various agencies that have requested them, so we can recount them and do a forensic audit of the vote. That's where the term would come in for that, because clearly if the common denominator is Dominion, then it's something the court will look at and name outright, and will order them to go in and do the recount and provide this analytical statistical data that for even a blonde, I got to read it once. I can't get through it all. I got to look at it again to kind of square that circle, and make sure that we have an accurate vote, and that you have ballot boxes coming in with all votes for Biden, none for Trump. Well, that just doesn't seem like that's plausible. Even in any way, shape, or form, that's not plausible. So there's going to be things of that nature. Again, there are 2 dates that we got to look for. The first one, December 14th, that's when they certify the actual vote and actually announce who the winner of the election is. And then the other date, obviously, is going to be, before the inauguration, because if the presidency is not decided before the inauguration, then Nancy Pelosi will be the interim president. So those are 2 huge dates of things to look for.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? I mean, how long ago we were talking about, and if they could only hold off till January 20th or 21st, and then Nancy Pelosi becomes president, and it was like, now surely it won't be that bad.
Yeah.
And and you talk about the date December 14th. So as of the date of this broadcast, that would be about 15 days or 14 and a half days. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sneaks up on it.
It does, and it's and again, it's like for the Trump administration, they're under extreme time constraints. The Supreme Court's going to pick this up. Obviously, they know that this is a time constraint case, and that they will take it up. There's not going to be any argument. They'll take it up. How they're going to rule will be another decision. I also want to make one quick point here that I find kind of interesting, I guess, is that out in California, presumably Kamala Harris is going to be the next vice president of the United States. She hasn't resigned from the Senate. So if she's vice president, she can't be both. So why hasn't she resigned from being the senator? And we know that Gavin Newsom will appoint.
Basically, you're saying she's not sure she's got that job, the new job yet, right?
Yeah, that could be. That could be a woman intuition thing. I'm just saying. It could be that.
Hey, if I was running for dog catcher right now out here in California, I would not resign from this show yet. Okay? You know what I'm saying? You can never be sure. Hey, let me throw something at you, and I know that I can throw a high or a low ball or whatever with Kimberly, and she's going to come back with some intelligence on this. Are you ready? Not only with the Sidney Powell thing going on, this morning I caught the glimpses of this disturbing report where all of these big-name banks all of a sudden say we're no longer going to loan money to, fossil fuel people. And we're talking about the oil companies, the drillers, anything to do with fossil fuel.
Yeah.
And this is their thing.
Yeah, this is what.
Now,
Yeah.
this sounds like a very serious situation.
Well, this is definitely a very fascist, Marxist idea. And
Right.
when you resort to things like this, I mean, this is something where you could say Venezuela, Russia.
Right.
You can point to countries like that who have done things like this. Now, there have been really extreme people on both sides of the political aisle, but the ones on the right, people like PayPal and Venmo and other outfits, are not allowing them to do business because you have to be able to take money in, and if you can't get a bank account, then you can't be in business. So this is the next wave that our country is going to be facing, and it's going to go right back down to the First Amendment on this, because
Yeah.
why should you not be able to get a job because you worked for President Trump? Maybe you were just the secretary and you needed to, do whatever it is that you needed to do. I mean, we're getting into a very, very scary part of the
Yeah.
world, and that's exactly how Hitler started. So,
And they're saying, well, our clients, they're the ones that are doing this because they don't want to invest in this because they think that this time, the 12-year period, global warming will really strike. I mean, we know it hasn't happened, in 100 years. But,
and right about now out
It'll
here
be
in
right
DC,
back.
I would like to go on record. I like global warming being in DC.
Okay, well, for American policy, too, when you come to think of it, wow. And, if you're on the other side and you're so happy Joe Biden won, if you're happy that he won and he cheated, then, you got a problem, okay? I mean, it's like we have referees, and it's going to be up to the Supreme Court to pick the referees, I guess.
Well,
But
what they're going to do actually is they're going to set out the framework as to what the rules are in essence. So if you're on a football field, it's 100 yards from end to end. That's what you need to do to get a touchdown. Those kind of things. They're going to set the rules, and they will allow for certain states that are in question to throw ballots out if they did not meet those very basic parameters that the elections in their states set aside through the legislature. A governor cannot come in and say, you know what, we're going to leave the election open for an extra week afterwards, just until we get enough votes so we can win. Those things we can't do in this country, and that's what the SCOTUS will be doing here. They'll be looking at those situations, and again, they could come back and say this pandemic was the biblical proportion. It only happens once in a century or so, and it was beyond everybody's purview. They did not know how to handle this, although I would remind people this started back in February and March. They've had ample time to get ready for it, so that may not be something that the Supreme Court says, okay, we'll just let it slide this time. So it's just it's going to be decided in any event, as all elections are, by a few number of states, and the magic numbers that Trump needs is Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan. Those 3 states turn his way, and he gets reelected to the President of the United States, and he can carry on with his America First, which this last week Joe Biden kind of let it slip again. No, we're not doing America First anymore. So I guess we're going to get back to, throwing people, onto the government doles, and we're going to be helping out all these countries across the globe that don't necessarily need our help.
I guess he's not doing Build Back either, which was his campaign that he stole from the United Nations.
Back.
15 years ago.
I mean, they didn't. That's it, the whole thing. Just to think that he got more votes than Obama. He didn't even have a good campaign slogan. He had no rallies. So I mean, the whole thing is so preposterous. Maybe the Supreme Court comes back and I don't know. This just doesn't pass the smell test. This is how we're going to rule on it. Now, there's just coming. I want to put this 1 point thing here. Just coming across the ticker here now, Arizona at that hearing, they're saying there are about 1.9 million votes that may not have been counted properly. That's a lot of votes.
And remember, the largest county in Arizona where they were having the problems, Dominion.
Yep.
Dominion. Yeah, got it.
Dominion.
Boy, I wish we had time to get into this military analyst talking about, the Dominion software accessed by agents acting on behalf of China and Iran.
Oh, yeah.
Because Kimberly's a military lady, but guess what?
And we do it. We do it all the time to other countries. So it shouldn't be that, people shouldn't think it's plausible.
Yeah.
We do it ourselves.
Well, hey, we'll do it again next time. Kimberly Dvorak, Dvorak.